Good morning. I'm Anna Karolin. I'm really pleased to welcome you here, and we'll have a discussion debate until 3 o'clock. It's a topic which has been discussed most in Estonia during the last year. It's been a passionate discussion, but still we need to go on with a reasoned discussion. And now the Open Estonia Foundation has organized an event called The Voice of the Citizens in the European refugee crisis. You have to know how the decision-making takes place and how people can be engaged and involved. And I'm really pleased to give the floor to the chair of the Open Estonia Foundation, Mal Hellam. Dear guests, dear participants, dear colleagues, dear friends. On behalf of the Open Estonia Foundation, I'm really pleased to welcome you here at our discussion and debate. And today we are going to focus on the refugee crisis. We are going to discuss and debate how it could be possible to make the citizens' voice better heard and how to organize a public discussion corporations. We do know that the recent 25 years have been decisive for the European Union. A key word has been here our integration into Europe. European has deepened, it's expanded, and it's been an important as well as a difficult quarter of a century. And this era is also called a success story for Europe. But since last year, we are facing new developments. We see brand new threats and dangers, both internally and externally. And although there have been signs of these threats in the past, they have been left unnoticed and unmanaged. And it may be that they won't even be manageable. And everyone, we realize that everything we have been building together seems to be disintegrating. There are some who are ready to accept refugees, others have too many of them, there is no coordination. And the solidarity seems to be melting or becoming very fragile. There are some who don't want to help, and others say that solidarity can't be anything but mutual. If you have accused the European Union of dictating issues, have taken away the freedom. But the same people are looking now towards Europe and asking, where is Europe? Where's the coordination? I'd like to have more of Europe. So all these pending issues show that it's as if we are in an identity crisis. There seems to be an atmosphere of distrust, myth, wrong information, manipulation. They're all easy to crop up. And in such situations, public discussions and debates are unavoidable. They are very important. And it's not enough if our politicians make timid statements and issue press releases. We have to discuss the issues. So the current situation opens up a new opportunity to discuss the European values, but in quite a new context. And actually, today, the future of all member states is at stake, and our today's decisions will deliver either results or consequences. The refugee crisis is a situation which outlines various challenges also in the international relations system. We have to find a solution to many questions which are quite burning and urgent. How to find a solution to the root cause? How to deal with mass human rights violations, conflicts, how to coordinate assistance, how to provide assistance, how to be most efficient here, how to ensure the interoperability and the cooperation of different cultures and people, how to facilitate tolerance, and how to stand against the chaos, which today both ISIS and Russia are creating. These are tremendous problems, but we have to face them, we have to deal with them. People are having both fears and confusion, and we should not overlook these feelings. We shouldn't bypass them. We do need more discussions and debates, and we attempt to contribute to this process. And together with 9 pan-European organizations, we have created a joint initiative, EU Impact, from citizens' involvement to policy impact. We would like the voice of the citizens make better heard so that also the decision makers and politicians can hear. Dear guests, the crisis today is the largest after World War II. We should face the situations, and in order to take a step towards a better solutions and mutual discussions, we have invited here politicians, members of NGOs, actually everybody who is interested, both here and both those who are watching us online, either on the homepage of the Open Estonia Foundations or the Daily Postimees. And already in advance, I would like to express our gratitude to everybody who's interested, who's going to take the floor. I wish you an interesting and a discussion to take us all forward. Thank you. Thank you very much for opening the discussions, and I would like to invite here our first panel. But I have a few announcements first. As you know, this debate has a very passionate topic, and I know there are a number of people here ready to discuss and debate, but I would like to draw your attention to the fact that we will focus on decision processes in the refugee crisis. So could you kindly stick to the topic and remain constructive and polite. And for the benefit of those who do not understand Estonian, we have simultaneous interpretation into English.
You are welcome here, and there is translation available for you if you take it just near the door. Nii et ka välismaalased siis, kes räägivad inglise keelt,
dear foreign guests, English-speaking guests, it's your possibility now to listen to the simultaneous interpretations. We will focus on the decision mechanisms of the European Union. And the second panel with Indrek Tarand, Oudekki Loner and Marju Mandma will focus more on the voice of citizens. So if you think that the voice of citizens is a topic of interest to you, then after a grandiose lunch, we will have this topic. And now I will launch the panel.
I'd like to ask you to show your hands. Who knows what's going on in the world and what are the tendencies? Those who think they know. Show your hands. I was investigating things yesterday and studying things. Then, actually, I'm considered to be a very active person. But I thought that maybe things have been accumulating and we are a bit tired of all these issues. But now I would like to ask our panelists, what's going on in Europe? Is it coming to its end, or is it in the middle of everything? What's going on in Europe? What do you think? Maybe Kert would start.
Ega mina täpselt, võib-olla kõige täpsemini ikka teab Marju Lauristin, mis seal koridorides toimub.
Marju Lauristin would be the best person to know what's going on in the European corridors. But I know what's going on just through reading the media. And I'm reading not Estonian newspapers only, but also those newspapers issued in the European Union. Then on the basis of that, I think there is a grand confusion going on. Maybe a confusion we have never faced after the Second World War.
Teineteise väga suur süüdistamine.
Different parties, different people are accusing each other. People are accusing their European Commission that they are too passive. Their Commission is accusing their member states, and all of them together are accusing Greece and Italy, and then people look at Turkey saying that they should accept more refugees and migrants. Actually, the whole situation is very tense. I think the migration flows will continue. Yes, certainly. These flows will continue. In comparison with the last year, the records are broken. If we compare January this year and last year, through Mediterranean route last year, 15,000 people, but this January, more than 70,000 already have arrived. And the crisis is going on. Now, Marju, please. I am in the European Parliament in their committee dealing with human rights and also migration issues. I have to admit, I deal with these issues every week, every day during the last year. And I may say that at the moment we are in a situation in the EU where the European Commission has made its proposals, and in March their adjusted plan will be published. How to adjust their Dublin system, how to change their legal system, which actually is not valid anymore after Angela Merkel announced that everybody can come to Germany. Our officials have said that we have to defend the Dublin system. I would like to see how Estonians could be able to do that, but actually the system is not working anymore. Actually, the Dublin system says the country, the refugee, the migrant enters first. That country has to process their application, asylum or refugee application. But Merkel, as Estonian media has written Merkel looked through the borders. And the committee has made the proposals how to change and amend the Dublin system, how to make it legal that refugees have the right to move further to other countries after entering the first country.
praegu on ka olukord ju selles mõttes absurdne.
At the moment, actually, their situation is absurd. We see their refugees are as if refugees of a certain country, but they come to Europe, and for them, Europe, it means only Germany or Sweden, but Spain and Portugal, for example, our colleagues say there that they would like to accept refugees, they're ready to do that, but no refugees would like to go to these countries. Actually, the European system, it's not an European system. The first thing for us to deal with is how to make the system an European system. And at first, the crucial thing was to save people from drowning in the seas. And now this issue has been dealt with. The second issue is how to cope with these 70,000 people who are coming to Greece or Italy. And actually the processing capability of these countries, Italy and Greece, is rather low.
Kõige viimane tähendab tal kogemusi ja oskusi kasutada moodsat arvutustehnikat ja kogu seda
and this means that all the officials have to be able to use all the modern computer systems, information bases, databases, etc. And of course the problem for Greece is that they as a country, they face a huge crisis themselves. And this is a serious bottleneck. Also, Italy has a better situation, but nevertheless. And now there is an attempt to solve the situation by creating hot spots.
Kuumad punktid ühesõnaga, mis siis tagaks selle, et need inimesed, kes sinna maanduvad,
so that the refugees coming to these countries, they could be registered, they could be interviewed, etc., documented. At the moment, 4 such hotspots are working. The plan was to open 9. There was an information that 160,000 people have to be relocated, but actually some 400 were actually relocated officially. All the attempts made in the EU, in the Commission, etc., are dedicated to changing the present systems this way that the system would be really an all-European system and not just the attempt to help Italy and Greece. We are preparing an EU report on this issue, and their aim is to develop a holistic approach. As soon as a refugee make his or her first step on their EU member state, it means that the whole EU system has to take care of them. Yes, the first item was to save people's lives. Now we're thinking about the situation with registration of these refugees and what will follow, but we haven't been able to discuss integration issues yet. I would like to add, actually the situation at the Mediterranean Sea is still very drastic. Many people are drowning, and the fact that people try to come to Europe by sea in January, it is a drastic situation. And if we try to be empathic towards Greece, it's very difficult to compare Italy and Greece to Italy. People come without maybe within 1 month in the same number, which would be during 2 days in Greece. So we can't compare the load in Italy and Greece. Greece has an enormous burden. I'm waiting for the day where the Estonian Prime Minister would say, actually, we, Estonia, are the country which is boasting with digital capability. Maybe we can offer the resources so that registration issues would be smooth and people don't have to be in their hotspots and first camps for months before the final registration is made. But now, maybe coming back to the media coverage, maybe just regular listener and reader in the media would ask the question, why do people come to Europe? Why is the flow ongoing and why we accept them? Your questions remind me of a story which was told about their Estonians, foreign Estonians living abroad. When they asked the question considering their situation during the Second World War in Estonia, they asked the question, why didn't you ask their police to help you? Actually, this is similar now. If we would ask their migrants why they are not staying at home, I would like to say a few words about the present movement. Yes, the Dublin system is being revised and maybe we have to be a bit concerned, but I would like to tell Marju Lauristin also, we can't create a system which won't work. Yes, it's difficult to fulfill all their obligations, and when you have thousands of people waiting behind your door, it's difficult to observe all the legal issues. But the European Court has forbidden the countries to send the migrants back and refugees back to their home countries. We are speaking here, and I say we, meaning the European Parliament. Yes, this system doesn't work, and therefore we have to construct a new system. And while designing this system, we, Estonians, could also be part of. Yes, we are also presenting our opinion for the Commission, but at the moment I can't speak on behalf of our Minister of Interior Affairs. But Dublin system, it's a broader thing. If we take away the motivation of member states to defend their borders, it will be detrimental. We also told that you are their border country with Russia. It's your task to defend their border. Actually, they're frontal countries. They may be also quite bold countries. With Greece, we had the problem for months. We had to persuade Greece to accept help And Estonia has sent there also policemen to help the local police force. The discussion about borders now is moving towards their solution that we have to have common solutions. Yes, one of the countries may say that, oh, it's not our interest because all the refugees anyway would like to go to Germany. Why we should take care of them here in other countries? But in their crisis context, we haven't heard much about their mechanism of intermediate temporary protection. The temporary protection could be used for 2 years, and in order to separate Syrians from other nationalities, it could be used, but it hasn't been pointed out. It should be more stressed. Nevertheless, we are discussing this, but practical issues. First of all, refugees and migrants have to be registered, who they are, how many of them are there, and then next steps. And actually, bottleneck is there in their primary registration. Actually, the Schengen logic, which also encompasses Dublin system, it doesn't work now. And whether we are discussing the migration problem, refugee problem, or their non-control situation, and I'm afraid actually situation is not under control. This is a problem. And now, Mart, maybe.
Nii palju küsimusi on praegu õhku tõstatunud, et lausa paneb mõtlema.
Thank you. Well, I really don't know where to start. Let's start from scratch.
Missuguses olukorras nagu Euroopa siis selle migratsiooniprobleemiga
So the question is, what's the situation in Europe where we are with the refugee crisis? Well, really, there hasn't been such a resettlement of people after World War II in Europe, but comparing the post-World War II situation, how that this was done within European borders, but now the influx comes from outside Europe, and after the great migrations there hasn't been a situation like this in Europe. And this puts forward questions. You asked to raise hands. Who knows the situation, what the future will bring? They were really brave who raised their hands. I wouldn't dare to raise my hand because I don't know what's going on, and I don't really know what's going to happen in future. If a year ago anyone would have asked, would you believe that more than 1 million would come from outside Europe to Europe via Greece and Italy, and that we are going to have such a huge refugee crisis? Well, I guess there would have been very few who would have forecast this. There might have been some signs. But if you recall a few years ago, for example, Malta and Spain were under a migration pressure, but they found the solutions, and there was optimism, but there is no sign of it in Italy and Greece. So, to summarize, we just don't know what's going to happen. What's clear? Well, the migration flow will continue, that's evident. But the causes, well, there are a number of causes. The conflict is not over. Take a look at Aleppo. You know that most of the people are not escaping ISIS, but Assad, the government of Assad. This is the pressure point. And Russia and Iran are supporting him. And these countries are indirectly behind the migration flow. I don't say that they are the root causes, but in a way they are behind it. But there is also another cause, organized crime. Look at the people, how many are refugees and how many are escaping the war. Well, we just don't know. no one is able to identify who has come for what reasons. There is a plurality of reasons. But if we look at the prices for the transport to Europe, well, you know that not every one of them is a refugee. There are different motives behind their arrival in Europe. If we look at these people, that they are not all from Syria. Well, maybe 50-60% are Syrians, but others are from other countries. Nigeria is the most distant country the refugees come from. Being in Turkey myself, I see a documentary over the Turkish TV which described the situations. There is an organized crime group invites people, puts them on the way to another country. There are truckloads of them. They will have to work in order to pay for the transport, which means that these people become recruiters themselves, and at one point when they get to Europe they are really like slaves who have to find ways to pay back for the transport. And that is another point I would like to raise. In Europe, people are slightly concerned about the European Commission initiatives, not only Dublin. The life has shown that the European Commission initiatives have not delivered solutions. But as regards the Dublin Convention, I would be historically, retrospectively, slightly critical. What was behind the birth of Dublin? Well, considering the potential expansion of the European Union, they were concerned about people migrating from Eastern Europe to West. And now, this is a self-created trap for the countries who originally wanted to protect themselves from the migration flow. I don't think we can find a solution within the Dublin Convention. Well, we're always fighting with the consequences. Marju was quite right. She said the resettlement is currently focusing on just a few hundred, but we've got millions. Okay, you said that the Commission Commission proposals are not the solutions. But the administrative problems are probably also there. Isn't it the problem that countries like us don't want to accept refugees? Well, this might be one, but this is not the main reason. There are a number of countries who have invited refugees. Sweden, Germany, you can't really force people to go and stay where they don't want to. If we look at the Commission proposals, then the Commission makes a proposal. The first criticism arises in the Parliament. So in the European Parliament, we critically screen in the Parliament and also draft reports, find out the weak points. As all countries are represented in the Parliament and all possible points of views are also represented. So it's a tough screening, and the report is adopted only if there is consensus. So the big countries have also agree. And then the Council will join, and then we'll see different attitudes and approaches which vary from extreme to extreme among countries. So in the Council, there is a debate which we don't see. We just see when the Prime Ministers or line ministers take a family photo, but you don't see the fights. Okay, but what's the time line?
Kell tiksub, ütleme,
Well, it takes time. At the Commission, it's a month, sometimes weeks. In the Parliament, a month, 6 months, a year. And the Council, well, it take endlessly. No, if in 1939 there would have been the same process, World War II would have been over before the Commission would have completed its work. Not just commissions, but the entire decision process. But actually, Commission works fastest. Okay, thank you. We will go into greater detail into decisions, why the decisions take time, and what kind of decisions are in store for us. But I would like to summarize the current decision. We actually see that the migration flows continue. Some of the flows come from non-traditional countries of origin, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh. But most of the arrivals in Europe are from Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Eritrea. Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq, Eritrea. Other countries, the asylum, from where the asylum seekers are preferred. Syrian refugees are accepted faster than from some other countries. Okay, we understand there are a number of administrative problems because this is an uncontrollable, huge crisis. There are attempts to create hotspots, to cooperate, to facilitate registrations, to fingerprint all asylum seekers in order to identify later where they came from. And quite often the asylum seekers themselves have lost or destroyed their documents, and they can tell their story without documents. Decision-making process is really difficult. Well, do you have, our dear audience, any questions? Do you have any questions? Is there anything which was not touched upon? Just a moment. I will bring you the microphone. And would you introduce yourself briefly? Briefly. Toomas Alatalu, 1 meter 72 centimeters, former member of the Estonian Parliament. I have an easy question. The major problem seems to be that there is lying on the top level in Europe. Well, the multicultural success seems to be lies about police activity. And I have a very easy and simple question. The events in Karolin, Germany, have changed the situations. There are a number of documents adopted, discussed. Would any of them say that the information should be more accurate and objective, or are the documents worded in their way as up to now everything is okay? So I would like to know whether there is an increase of critical opinion. Who would like to respond? Marju, Lauristin. Well, really, it's different information depending from where you get it. If we look at the information coming from mass media, well, this is really extremely biased, inadequate. In our committee, we listen to people who have been on the spot. We conduct studies and reports. Anyway, information is inadequate. It's a major problem. And just as Marju said, there is lack of information about the people who come to Europe. Okay, even if you fingerprint them, them in the hotspot, then anyway, there's no information about the structure of the refugee groups. Well, this kind of information may be collected or gathered in one or another country, but the original information is very journalistic. In some articles, there is one focus, in another article a different focus. Somewhere said that all have expensive smart phones and have university educations. Another article saying that, oh, they're all bare feet and extremely poor. Well, in the pending report we are drafting, the lack of information is one point, and I also made an amendment. Information about the structure, the composition of refugee flows is very important. We need evidence-based information. Thank you. If I may, I would like to add, I don't really know what's being lied about. Maybe there's too much generalization. Some raise refugees to the highest heights and the others drop them into the deepest holes. But the people coming towards Europe are people, human beings. And it's as usual, there's very good and not so good people. But if we look at previous statistics, then in the past, 75% of asylum seekers until you are not a refugee, you won't have a status of a refugee, and only 25% have actually the positive response to the applications. As today, there are more refugees coming from Syria, then probably 50% of them will get, and the others 50% are from other countries. And the other 50% are from the Balkan countries. In the past, into Germany there have been refugee flows from the Balkan countries. And humorists say that in the autumn, when weather is cold in the Balkan countries, people come to Germany, and in spring they return to the Balkan countries. So they spend the winter in Germany with the refugee assistance. Well, I guess Thomas knows as well as we do that the governments always lie to the people. Why? Well, in a way, it's maybe even understandable. Well, the governments should not lie when they want to hide some of their misdoings. But there are also some emergency lies, which I know from my previous experience in many European countries. The police is not allowed to collect and gather information about by ethnic groups. But 15 years ago, which has nothing to do with today's crisis, but 15 years ago, I asked the head of the Frankfurt police, so what are the ethnic groups in your crime rate? Well, they have no, I was told, no right to collect it. Well, it's clear they don't want to create racial hatred. But as of today, we have a situation we cannot really discuss and debate because we have no statistics how the crime is split between ethnic groups.
Väga konservatiivsema poole vaategele väita ükskõik mida.
So, say whatever. It's not just your nationality, it's education and other data. And knowing a lot about data protection, then within data protection framework, it's possible to collect this data, but the point is how to process them and who has the access to it. Well, it's a typical attitude in Germany, as you just described, as if it's not allowed to collect. Well, if you don't collect essential data, you will end up in a crisis. So who can be blamed that the crisis was unexpected?
korraks, härra Ivar, viimane küsimus, et võib-olla siin on küsimus selles,
Well, maybe the point is that
kindlasti mingi
the events in Cologne can be considered an emergency lie, but it's really bad if something important is hidden. But we should be very careful when we talk about lying, the top level in Europe. It's regrettable that in the Cologne, Germany, some information was hidden, which we should know. But we can't really say that everybody all the time is lying. We have to be quite sure what's the information we are unaware of. Just as Marju Lauristin has said, there's a lot of information about asylum seekers which we don't know. Maybe criminals, they may be other problematic people. It may be difficult to collect information. But another point is whether we cannot accept these people who have this information. Well, I don't think we can hide whether there is a war going on somewhere or not. Well, actually, no. Last year, about 1 million refugees arrived in Germany. They've been able to process about 300,000, 700,000 are pending processing. And talk about temporary tents where you can just process, or a rapid process if you are from Syria. And if there is no information that you belong to the ISIS, then in case of Syrians, the decision should be taken under 48 hours. Well, hiding data has another negative side. You can't really hide everything in a democratic society. And if there's information is partially hidden, there will be rumors. And rumors may be much worse than the truth. So I don't really approve of the police hiding information. Well, I actually think that a lot of the so-called wrong information comes from, as it's been said, well, I don't know, but I got it from mass media. Well, we get information, a picture from mass media about faraway countries, and mass media is mostly based on impressions and not on facts. Well, really, as regards mass media, you really have to look at the sources. Well, in social media, the picture may be different. Just imagine if Estonians were to flee and if the rest of the world would base their opinion on Peter Võsa's TV show that every Estonian is the way it's depicted in this show. Why do you talk about the future? Well, we have a current picture of Estonians as thieves, prostitutes, killers, murderers. Well, typical Estonian, typical Lithuanian, typical Poland. Why does the UK want to leave the European Union? Not because of Syria, but the people coming from some East European countries. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Raig wanted to ask the question. Yes, the mic is yours. Thank you. I am Ivar Raig, and I'm also a former member of the Estonian parliament, but my height is 1.90 m. But now my question. We were speaking about information, inadequate information. This is a small problem. Also, low administrative capacity, this is not a major problem. In comparison, which could be a major problem, Mart Nutt was referring to it. It's not just migration within Europe, but it's a global migration issue.
Nigeeria ei ole Euroopa lähedal. Bangladesh ei ole Euroopa lähedal.
Nigeria is not close to Europe. Yes, migration problem is in Bangladesh, Pakistan, South America, etc. Now my question, do their clever leaders of Europe have come to the idea that the migration problems could be solved on the global level? Their World Economic Crisis 2008, it was a global problem. The world economic crisis was solved within the framework of G8 financial crisis. It's not possible to solve only within Europe, and it's not possible to solve the European migration crisis only in Europe. And IMO, it's one body, but also have Europe approached G8? I don't know about G8. Yes, G8 is discussing mostly economic issues. Whether they have discussed migration issues, I don't know. Probably yes. But all this refugee problem, it is UN issue. And European Union and the global level, how they connect with each other and relate with each other. Yes, of course, cooperation could be improved. And G8, this is also a good body, and as to crisis in Syria, it is a global problem. And actually I have to praise Mrs. Mogherini, who is representing EU in the foreign policy. She doesn't speak much and doesn't make many speeches, but she is very effective. And she is a major player in the world policy. And the crisis has shown that Europe can't defend itself anymore and separate itself from the rest of the world. And while speaking about the reasons of this migration, we haven't touched upon the issue of climate refugees yet. And climate refugees, actually their number is higher than war refugees. While speaking about the global picture, I would like to say there are some experts who say, okay, let's take the global picture. We have 60 million people at present who have to leave their home country because of a conflict. These 60 million, last year, 1 million only reached Europe. It means the global number of refugees in the world is huge, and only a tiny number of them have reached Europe. Take their reasons for the problem. European Union, with all its institutions and global structures, has been able to solve their fate of 400 refugees only. It means the whole EU institutional structure is ineffective. And actually, this is a positive thing. At the moment, EU starts to think about its restructuring, its readjustment. You can think whether it's possible to make parallels or not. We are speaking about 1 million migrants in Europe now within 1 year. In
ümberasujatest, aga me rääkisime
some years ago, we were speaking about 20 million of people who had left their countries. It was during their wartime, and no international acts about the refugee status. There were no such acts. But at that time, one of the major forces dealing with these issues was the EU, United States of America. And many of Estonians also were fleeing to US, Canada, UK. Let's leave this history now aside. Now we can't leave it. Greece and Italy, they say to us, well, you don't know anything about refugees. Pardon me, we know very much about refugees. Okay, now let's continue. Mr. Reich, we will come back to global issues later on when we study the conflicts, but now let's proceed. How are the decisions made considering migrants and refugee crisis? European Commission, European Parliament, and then the Council, EU Council, and what else is there in this decision-making process? I would like to stress practically decisions, steps. They are made by member states, and they are made within their member states or by representatives in the council. Glenn, you are monitoring the process and also participating in it. From the practical point of view, I would like to say their major actors are the countries which have their highest burden. And we are speaking a lot about Italy and Greece, but also Germany, Sweden. And while speaking about relocation in practice, actually, most of the refugees have gone to Germany. But maybe we should help directly Germany, Sweden, Austria. And very often people who arrive in Greece nowadays, then within 3 weeks they arrive in Germany, actually. Yes, of course, many mistakes have been made so far. We see the discussions of Dublin 3. Yes, maybe it will be a lesson learned on the basis of the last non-functioning system. And I think the timeline is very short nowadays. We know that in May, decisions will be made. Whether their Schengen borders will be preserved or not, and maybe even Germany will also start to defend and guard its borders. And on the one hand, decisions try to achieve best solutions. I could make the parallel to Eurozone crisis, where also decisions had to be made in a very fast way. But major crisis decisions have been functioning quite well. If we speak about this Eurozone crisis, and yes, of course, I agree with Marju that we have to reconsider things. Nowadays, we're speaking about EU border forces, border guard forces. The parliament is discussing these things already. We were discussing last week the issue of border guard and also their funds for asylum seekers and hotspots. The office is in need of money to be more efficient. During the crisis, invention of a bicycle, maybe it's not quite right, but in case nation states can't cope with the crisis, then joint effort has to be made. And I would like to interfere. Let's be more precise. You definitely know a lot about these decisions and these decision makers. But while speaking about decision makers, we are speaking about their negotiators from member states. But where is the competence line between their competencies of different institutions? It is a point of discussion. But I think that Slovak government has decided to sue the European Commission in the court because of the refugee quotas. And we will hear once that kind of solution. Where is the competence of member states and the Commission? When the Commission tried to introduce their mandatory quotas, then actually member states' governments had the right to refuse. And the Slovak government decided to go to the court with this process. And actually the court has to decide whether the Commission has the right to introduce such quotas or not. But actually, in principle, it has to be their competence of member states. On the other hand, member states are waiting for their European Commission to be more active, to make decisions, to give money, and here is the pressure also to review their basic agreements and contracts. In the Central Europe, in the Nordic Europe, we can hear that in case the Commission won't make the decisions, we have to do something ourselves, either to introduce border controls, etc. But Mart, you pointed out the Slovak case. Commission wouldn't like to impose things. The Commission says we have their proposal. No, it's not quite that. The first thing Juncker said, it was the message that European Union will impose quotas on member states, and then the message was softened later on because member states were against. In our ordinary speech, we say the Commission decides. Actually, after Lisbon Treaty, Commission can't take decisions alone. Commission throws the ball, proposes the idea, and then the process starts. European Parliament starts to criticize the Commission, and then the Council, and the final decision will be made later later on. But Commission can make quick decisions, and also the Parliament can make a decision at least within half a year. But the Council works slower. For example, Slovenian colleagues say, in case you won't decide anything at the moment, then Slovenia will disintegrate, collapse. Sometimes we are mistaking these countries, Slovenia, Slovakia, but now they are diametrically opposing each other. We, as if we have decided Merkel has to be blamed for the crisis. There is a kind of idea. But you said that, Marju, you said, I think there were times when also Merkel had their possibility of just drawing the line between Germany and other countries and not accepting anybody, any refugees. But what would have become of Slovenia or Balkan countries if Merkel had done that? In Croatia, Slovenia, Hungary, there would be a humanitarian catastrophe in case the refugees could not pass to Germany. The way how things are discussed in Council, it's not adequate because real problems are not discussed. Germany is dictating, but actually Germany should be the one who had started negotiations with Slovenia and other countries in order to cooperate better. But small countries were ignored. Merkel will have elections in March, and maybe therefore she would have to cooperate more actively now. And build a new border defense in Slovenia or between Slovenia and Macedonia. Actually, there is a border also between Germany and France. Last week in Strasbourg, many maps were late because the border control was very tough between France and Germany. Now, if we consider the decisions, future decisions, what are the discussions in the European Commission, in the Council, in the Parliament, what would be their major issues discussed within their nearest half a year? Joint border guards. This is their hottest issue, how to save Schengen. Second, how to change the whole system this way that there wouldn't be criminal activities and criminal smuggling, and it's not enough to arrest smugglers or destroy the boats. The issue is how to make it legal for the people to come to the labor market in EU. EU has declared that it needs 7 million new people on the labor market. The issue how to create a situation that Libya and Turkey could hold their migration flows. Turkey has the ability, Libya hasn't. And with Turkey, it's the issue of negotiations. Turkey maybe would like to press out some things and more favorite conditions.
midagi ei saa öelda. Aga Liibüa puhul
But in case of Libya, I can't imagine.
suures vaimustuses
I don't think EU is fascinated by going to Libya with physical forces to take hold of migration flows. Yes, the issue of the EU itself, whether it's possible to review things or make something new. What could be the discussions and decisions for their next year? Yes, one thing is Turkey and Libya and also Jordania, refugee camps, very big camps. And EU will discuss development assistance and targets it better. The other issue is how to guard and defend their EU external borders, how to register quickly refugees and how to identify those refugees who could have the rights of refugee status and who have no right. But also the internal decision processes, what could be their displacement future and what could be the future of Schengen. If internal border controls will be restored, then different calculations have made. France said that 10 billion loss will be lost. EU has pointed out 3 billion will be lost. 3.5 million people are crossing internal borders, EU borders every day. And also labor migration is very active. Czech people, also Estonians are very actively crossing internal borders, going to work in Finland, for example. And number 3, internal decisions. How we, for example, in Estonia can decide how to stay human. I would like to say, people are watching us through online channels. We cannot say that it's clear that Schengen borders will be closed. And therefore, maybe Estonians can't go to work to Finland in the future. It is clear that the same danger that internal borders will be closed. This is actually the most effective factor, the which makes us take quick decisions. We understand that in case the Schengen internal borders will be closed, economic losses will be huge. I would rather think that this very bad situation will be solved because Schengen danger, Schengen risk is very clear to everybody. What will it mean to close Schengen borders? It won't be visa regime introduction. It will mean the control will be restored on the borders. Maybe the situation will be restored, which Estonia had till 2007. If you want to go by car to Italy, how many border crossings? Very many countries and very many border controls. Think yourself how many hours will be lost due to border controls. We are discussing the increase of efficiency, economic efficiency all the time, but if the borders will be closed and controls will be introduced, then economy will lose huge. sums. Yes, money speaks. This is clear to everybody, to worker, to ministers.
Kus sa võtad selle raha, et rekkamehele 2 korda rohkem palka maksta?
Yes, Klen, please. In microeconomy, these consequences are calculated. If you just trade not IT issues and high-tech issues, but you are shipping just smaller goods, it will be detrimental to have border controls and loss of time and money. Now, I would like to ask the following question. The migration flows are continuing. Germany, Austria have problems with the number of refugees. But what could be the price for Estonia? Should we accept more migrants than we have declared so far, more humanitarian aid, or what?
Well, actually, we should look at our possibilities. If we were to demonstrate our capabilities of solutions, this might be very important. I have seen that there is no danger of mass migrations. We are happy. Latvia has got 2 refugees. How successful they were, but I don't think we can expect huge masses coming to Estonia. So it gives us time to find a way to give to Europe something which helps to find a solution. So say, oh, Estonia helped us to get the solution. Yes, really, I do agree with Marju. Well, our capability to accept more people is not solutions, whether it's 500 or 1,500. Well, if they are not going to stay in Estonia and move forward, then we are in the situation where we were before. I think we should invest more into joint activities in the European Union. We can do it, and this is also ethical. But you never know. One day we might be in a situation like Greece one day if something would happen in the east of us. Glen? Yeah, I would like to say that if we take a look at the bigger picture, then Marju drew parallels, start from refugees and end with EU citizens. If we look at the countries who demand equal rights in other countries are from Eastern and Central European countries. And if we look at the broader picture, then in Western Europe, they say that structural aid should be redistributed into the countries where there is a higher need. So these are the issues. And I think today it's also under discussion, maybe there should be more resettlement into the third countries. Maybe an agreement with Turkey should be achieved. But Estonia is keeping a close eye on the situations, thinking about potential contributions. And I guess we rank the 6th as regards our contribution to Frontex, and we have also contributed to the Turkish funds. But now I am becoming very personal. You see, the total amount in monetary terms has remained the same. We have just reduced development aid. We have not increased the share of our aid, some 0.17 or whatever percent. Well, really, I would like to stress that we should consider our capabilities, our knowledge as a resource. So this would be an investment into our future and our future possibilities. I would also like to point out that the crisis has all of a sudden brought into the limelight the globe. You know, the problems are not related only to refugees. But if we take Europe, Africa, even further parts of the world, it all has become a daily part and parcel of our life. And I think we should be more interested and more open to other cultures. Well, as regards interpretation, translation capabilities, this could be much higher. I would call it even a dialogue of civilizations. There should be more focused on our in education. We need more people to work in Frontex and in other pan-European institutions. NGOs, I think the Estonian youth could contribute here more, so it would be an eye-opener. Klen, I do agree with Marju. We should consider it as an opportunity. And when we talk about security issues, that we should have more troops here, yeah, maybe we should have more bodyguards on the European border in Estonia. But as regards the development aid and the money, then I think as regards the assistance to Turkey and other countries, this comes from additional funds. So ODA will probably move upward in a year or two. So this money is not taken away from anybody. But actually, the budgetary strategy does not foresee the increase of development aid. It's the same amount of money. So it means that money has been taken away from some countries. Estonia stops aid to Afghanistan or reduces the aid. So on the governmental level, Syria, Eritrea, other conflict points will not get increased assistance from Estonia. Well, all I'm saying is that we contribute about 3 million euros to the Turkish fund. If they are ODA eligible, this is a different story. Do you want to say this is an additional money? Okay, thank you. Well, I've got an answer. Let's move forward. Later, we can focus on Syria, Eritrea, and Afghanistan. But let's get to the key point. The voice of citizens. Estonia has had a really painful debate vis-à-vis refugees. And I do support the idea we should not close the borders to war refugees who really escape death. But in Estonia, there seems to be spreading an opinion, why should we help these people? But now the question is the European citizens' voice heard in Europe when decisions are taken? Or should Europe consider? Well, I would say that it's very dangerous to generalize. We don't really have a reliable Gallup. What's the public opinion? I'm speculating here. I don't have any data myself. But based on my knowledge, the preparedness to help war refugees
see nii-öelda vastu tulevikus on päris suur. See aga,
is there.
riiki tulevad immigrandid,
People
pagulase või
are quite
sõjapõgenikud
ready,
tegelikult
but
seda ei ole.
another issue is people who come as war refugees and actually are. Well, this is what people are against. So I think the intolerance of Estonians is just a bubble, but I guess Estonians are probably sometimes more straightforward than others. We see in the so-called old EU members, they have this kind of double standards. Well, our discussion today focuses on the citizens' reforms. Well, really, we can hear the extreme right and extreme left voice who has no way we accept anybody, they should all be thrown out, etc., etc. But this is extremist voice, and I'm sure we know, and we know that in Estonia there is also such a voice heard. But you know, the people who have a different opinion don't make that loud voice. But as regards the citizens' voice, citizenship voice, I would like to know, where's the message? Where is the message? And here I see that the civil society should really discuss issues so that this citizens' voice should be a voice of reason, not a voice of scaring. So I don't think the picture in Estonia is as black as it's painted. The discussion has become quite broad-based in Estonia. Opinions vary, and diversified positions, arguments.
Minu meelest väga oluliselt lähemale sellele,
and we have also
seda pagulaste teemat näeme inimlikust vaatepunktist.
Now, looking at the refugee issues from the point of stories, we have a human point of view. Okay, the citizens' voice can be based on media, on politics, on stereotypes, but it can also be based on human stories, stories of the friend, your neighbor, joint experience, joint event. So I think this is very important, how the citizens' voice is being developed. So the citizens' voice should have a message which is worth noticing. Well, I've been quite fortunate we have been given time. Let's take Slovenia, where it all happened overnight. We keep comparing ourselves with Slovenia, a small country, post-communist. We compare also our economy with Slovenia. And no, all of a sudden, this refugee crisis has practically crushed Slovenia. It's a desperate situation they are in. We are not that desperate as yet. We still have time to listen to the voice of reason. As regards the citizens' voice, then I really regret something. The refugee crisis has been going in for some 10 months, but we still don't understand who is a refugee. Still keep saying that we are against refugees. Then I'd like to ask, if you're against refugees, who do you support? Who are you for if you're against? There's 25% really need help. So are you against whom and for whom? So if you're against this 25% who have a reason to come, are you in favor of these 75 who just are looking at better living conditions? So see, look at the refugees. They are not just holiday mayors who like to have pancakes and coffee and tea and enjoy life. Well, they are people who are fleeing the death. So it's regrettable that the word refugee has lost its meaning, and it's very difficult now how to discuss
kui see mõiste kui selline on ära
the refugee issues.
Väga olulise teema tõstes, ma arvan, et
Well, I think it's really important. In mass media, they're making a devil's service, and this service when they talk about refugee crisis.
On ainult üks osa.
Refugees are just a percentage of the general problems. If they were plain war refugees, well, Europe could cope with it, but the European Union can't cope with the migration. Well, yeah, this is what we're talking about, that economic migrations is making use of the whole or situations the war has brought along. But should be able to organize and manage reasonable economic migrations. Our demand on such hands is probably low compared to Germany, who would need 1 million and it said that. Okay, I would like to listen to the audience. What's your opinion? Should the citizens' voice be heard better, or what kind of citizens' voice should it be in Estonia? I know Mal wanted to take the floor. Okay, I'll give her the floor first. Thank you. I'd like to agree with Marju Lauristin. Exchange of opinions has become calmer. The exchange of opinions is taking place. It's become more civilized compared to a situation a couple of months ago. But again, I think media has done a lot. There are lots of stories, individual stories, how people have come to Estonia, how they have learned Estonia, how they're trying to cope in Estonia. And I think what's really positive that in the daily Postimers, anonymous comments have been banned. So now there are reasonable comments. You can read them and you can use it in conducting a dialogue. But my question is, how politicians are delivering their messages. Okay, media is doing its work, but we are looking forward to politicians to be more proactive. So that I will go and discuss and organize discussion, not only with my party cronies, but all over Estonia. And I have a very specific question to Marju. Have you felt in the Parliament that in the European Parliament there have been interesting meetings, really interesting meetings with various umbrella organizations? Because there are a tremendous number of organizations dealing with human rights, migration, whatnot. Have you got any significant input as an MEP? Well, really, such meetings and events are organized. I participated in a few, and I'm going to organize one myself.
Need inimesed, kes eri maades on erinevates ühendustes ja neid on muide Euroopa maades ikka väga palju.
Different countries belong to different organizations and there's a large number of various refugee responsible organizations.
Tegelevad selle esmase abistamisega
tõesti. Focus on being like first responders providing the food, care,
ja nendel on ka oma võrgustik ja selle võrgustikuga meil on
providing training or whatnot. So there are various networks, and we have contacts with such networks.
Näiteks kas või isegi teatud erafirmad, ettevõtted pakkuma oma lahendusi.
Interesting experience with private companies who put forward their various experience.
Kus me kuulsime, kuidas moodi üks Rootsi firma.
Last week there was a seminar where I heard a Swedish company who put forward a very smart solution to use a smartphone. Well, it was an app
kõikidel nendel pagulastel, kes Rootsi riiki tulevad,
which allows all refugees coming to Sweden get in 4 languages information about the Swedish society, job opportunities, legislation, but also to provide information about their own education level, etc. So now all refugees coming to Sweden get this kind of smartphone with this information from Sweden. So you see, this is a public-private partnership.
Tegelike probleemide lahendamisel, ma arvan, on võib-olla isegi kõige positiivsem jõud.
Solve real problems, such solutions are very helpful. So in my personal opinion, the share of NGOs and networks is as important as that of various institutions, but not. I have a test now, dear audience. Put away your smartphones or whatever. Well, grab a neighbor. It doesn't have to be a foreigner. It can be your friend. So, discuss with your neighbor during 1 minute. So each of you will tell the other how the voice of citizens could be heard more in Europe. 1 minute for a quick discussion. Would any of you would like to share the opinion? I can see you enjoy talking, you still do. But what do you think? What kind of voice could citizens have? Mr. Kivirähk, what are your thoughts? Well, initiatives, Friendly Estonia, she organized a concert in summer, and other NGOs which focus on helping refugees. Well, these initiatives are very welcome, but we mostly focused on other issues because we hadn't met for ages. Thank you. Tõnis, he's an experienced conference member. Thank you. Well, we actually had similar thoughts. Human rights and refugee assistance organizations, they could be heard better in European discussions, but also the private sector should be better heard. Well, the example just brought from Sweden about the smart app, well, excellent. So both the civic society and NGOs could do something here. The voice of experts, multicultural issues, immigrations, migration. This voice of experts should be heard better, and I don't think it's well heard in Estonia as yet. I'm sure that more extreme voices would ask you, and I am going to ask instead of them. But if Estonian people don't want the refugees, why are you now against the will of people? How will we answer them? Well, this is what I meant when I said in EU they have a right to say that this nasty East European shouldn't come to UK. So I would have approved ethical situations, behave with the others the way you would like to be dealt with. Well, it's been repeatedly expressed, and I share this opinion myself. the position that we should not help actually applies only to marginal group, and I don't think that the politicians who have expressed such an extreme view, they haven't been very successful during elections. Well, we see in other countries as well that such voices heard, but I don't think that in a democratic society this could become dominant. Okay, we'll return to this issue later. And now, last but not least, urgent issues, the root causes. If we look at what's going on the international arena vis-à-vis Syria, then we know that UN started peace negotiations with different parties. Russia, US, Syrian government, Syrian opposition. They are the key parties to discuss whether there will be peace or not. So there are opinions that the peace will not be achieved. Also, that even if Russia, for example, participates, they will continue attacks against civilian populations. And it's also thought that US is a key player who should exercise more pressure, but doesn't want to exercise pressure because it's afraid of major conflict with Russia. But if we look now, Afghanistan, Iraq, Eritrea, Sudan, from where the refugees come, then what can we do with them? Are we doing enough? Is the European Union doing enough with these countries in order to solve the root causes? To be honest, if we had no refugee crisis, would anyone turn any attention to Syria at all? To the mass violations of human rights, which have taken place for the 5 years at least. Okay, if we talk about root causes, which Northern Africa, Arab countries, well, unfortunately, both in the United States and in Europe, the Iraq war-related issues have been critically re-evaluated. If we go to root causes, the convictions that a military solution would modernize a dictatorship that attacks and helped to destroy Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or any other similar movement. They all turned out to be illusionary solutions. The jinn which escaped the bottle, well, it's difficult to catch it. Well, but it also brings along an obligation to deal with this problem, which should bring at least some kind of peace. So I'd like to say that the share of Europe is larger than can be seen. Mogherini as they're reporting regularly to the European Union, and they're long, some 9-hour sessions in the European Parliament. There are sometimes 12-15 people listening to her, but she reports in detail about the situation. This is an extremely complicated situation. Plain rhetorics doesn't help here. So I am very careful when participating in discussions. As if we could see from here what's the best to do. Well, A week ago, I had a possibility to listen to an excellent British expert in the Arab situations who informed us about ISIS, its background, its popularity, its attraction. Everything the expert told was so different from the stereotypes we have, so distant from it. So I'm even more convinced that we should take time and will to go seriously into details to understand what's going on, what are the factors, and then come together and make our voice heard, to tell the truth, which the politicians in Brussels or wherever don't know. Well, I think this is a challenge facing us. It's a complicated, it's a dangerous world and situation, so we have to learn and know more in detail about it before we start expressing our opinion. Well, I do believe that it's possible to export the war, but it's not possible to export the peace. What does it mean? It means that it's not Europe who can deliver peace in the Arab countries. It can just be a mediator to help moving closer to the peace. The countries you mentioned, I don't think they're comparable. The problems are extremely different in these countries. Syria and Eritrea. When Eritrea has no civil war, they have dictatorship. And dictatorship is a different story. What's the difference between Eritrean and Syrians? Eritrean is a refugee and Syrian is a war refugee. Syrian is not a refugee as regards the refugee convention. Okay, I'm not talking about military interference. Solutions are complicated. But if we see that the root causes are in these countries, well, root causes are not in these countries. Root causes are somewhere else. Okay, I agree. Okay, international relations, okay, so there's long-term conflicts, whatnot, so this is where the root causes are. But anyway, we should rather move forward to dealing with them. How? How? Okay. Let's take a closer look at Syria. I'm talking about Syria today. I'm not talking about in the past, when the Arab Spring started. Let's look at the conflict today. In Syria, we have different centers competing for power monopoly. Yeah. Two ways to reach the peace. Okay, the power monopoly, a bloody destroyal of competitors and establishment of dictatorship. The other solution could be that they share power and come to an agreement. I don't see today either of these solutions on the horizon. So in near future, I don't think the peace is possible, but in longer perspective, yes, because there's no eternal war as such. Okay, I'm doing what I don't want to do. When something goes bad, we look to the east and say that Russia or Putin are to be blamed. But if we look at Syria, then last week there was a conference where our Prime Minister was present also in UK. And in UK, they discussed humanitarian and development aid to the Middle East, 10 billion euros. So part of the European elite was to discuss how to help to achieve peace. Russian troops and Air Force bombed Syria and more refugees. So you see, it's a cynical situations. And we know that war refugees have also been used as a mass weapon. They have been used and targeted against a country to achieve a goal. So what's the objective and goal of Putin and its troops? Why are they interested in pushing these flows towards Europe? When we talk about Northern Africa, then it's not right to say that we haven't had migration flows. We had it in 1994, 1996 during Muammar Gaddafi. And also Gaddafi used mass migration flows towards Europe to get more money, more help. 10 years ago, Gaddafi got 2 billion for a bilateral agreement with Italy in order to restore its border guard. Today we know that Turkey got 3 billion euros. Okay, we can't really compare Gaddafi and Turkey. Of course, that's clear. I'm not comparing. But all I'm saying is that the mass migration flows can be used for different purposes, for diplomatic purposes, for imposing your will, etc. And we said, no. But could we do something more so that the situation would improve? We know that this assistance was given to Turkey, just a desperate way to do something. But would humanitarian, would development aid help? Well, if we look at Syria, it is said that much more important than this kind of help would be the possibility for them to sell their products in Europe so that people could stay at home, manufacture goods and work instead of being in a refugee camp waiting for money. So here we are back at the world order and global problems. Is it a migration crisis or a refugee crisis? So here we see many unsolved problems. Someone mentioned here lying. Well, we can really say that Europe as a whole has been lying for a long while to itself. So we have saying that there are sometimes the perception of the world as if it were the world in 1950s or 60s. But you can see that the social media and internet sometimes behind these big migration flows, where people daily see that their life is much worse compared to people living on the other side of the sea, and that there is a possibility to escape the misery if you pay to a smuggler. Well, the information field has changed. You can't see behind the fence that our life here in Europe is okay and let's keep the others away.
No, ma olen Mardiga absoluutselt nõus, et nagu konkreetse konflikti osas, et ilmselt see lahendus ongi selline ja siin tuleb
I agree with Mart, and fast agreements should be reached and not just a bloody dictatorship supported. But about prevention, we have to consider here long-term solutions. Not anything quick could be achieved. And while speaking about development aid, I'm not, this is not a mainstream issue, but efficiency should be taken care of, and economic development. This will cause also additional migration. This has been seen also in our societies. But while speaking about particular topics, we can also look at Western societies. In many of the development aid countries, the problem is education, inclusion of women in the society, plus in many of the regions, water, access to any other resources. These are the topics we have to consider for the future. And also preference in developing trade with these countries, so that people, local people, could have their income through developing economy. And trade routes, this is also important. Continuing with Marju's ideas, yes, also in our other policies, we have to pay attention to their interests of these countries, so that one part of the world wouldn't stay in poverty. But EU hasn't wanted to change its trade policies, tax issues, etc. These are their issues, which actually were not solved in their Sustainable Development Conference. These issues haven't been solved so far. So far, we think that, well, in every sector of interests, we have to defend our interests first. We, who are we? We in Estonia, for example, and if we really want to do something, I think there is one possibility, one more possibility. You pointed out resources and education. Now, 1.5 million refugees or migrants have arrived to Europe, and a great number of these people will be sent back, maybe, but they still spend some time in Europe, many months in Europe. And if they are just living in camps, it will be a good ground for ISIS to recruit them. I just saw one film stating that ISIS was born in these refugee camps, Palestinian refugee camps. And young men from Arabic countries, they could be educated so that when they return to their home countries, they could be a positive force. And I'm not just inventing anything here. We had a very interesting discussion with a Dutch representative in our committee who said that the refugee centers in the Netherlands, they provide education from the very first day the migrant arrives in the camp and in the center. Everybody is educated and trained, even those who are sent back to their home countries. And it's very positive if we think what could be that force. 10,000 educated, more educated people who will go back to their home countries. It could be a remarkable force. One more thing. Development aid in a shorter or medium-long perspective may not help, actually, may even deteriorate the situation. If you give some help to an African country, you educate a person a bit, maybe he will be able to use IT and computer. It doesn't mean that the person will stay in that country. It will create a stronger wish for the person to go somewhere else. In the context of short-term perspective, it may not solve the issues. Aid is given, and it is advertised that EU is giving development aid. Actually, it's a myth that Europe is open. No, quite the other way around. Europe is closed, and this is a real problem. Development aid is given. That's right, but in case Europe wouldn't be such a protectionist, maybe the aid wouldn't be needed. But Europe can't solve the problem. But what could Europe do? Conflict areas, near these conflict areas, safety zones could be made, for example, in cooperation with Turkey. What is the aim of that kind of security zone or safety zone? People are guaranteed security. I myself, I have visited such UN camps. Yes, people are not satisfied there. They would like to go back home. But actually, physically, they are secure. They can get food. They can get medical aid. There are schools for children. And in that case, people wouldn't have wished to go to other countries, to go to Europe, for example. And this aid is not made, is not sent to Turkey. This aid is meant to provide refugee camps in Turkey so that the refugees could stay there safer. And economic migrants wouldn't like to go to these safety camps. That would be a good indicator. Real war refugees would go to safety camps, but economic migrants, they would never go there. And these safety zones, yes, they are good, but it won't take away the motivation from a person to go to Europe. It wouldn't take away the wish to take that hazardous journey to Europe. But Europe would think about relocation. People could be taken to the camp, but a promise could be given to these camp inmates that you will have a legal way of going to a European country later on. But a problem which we have to consider, you won't be able to relocate everybody. And then a question will arise, who will be relocated and who will not? It would be ideal to reach a point where people could come to the labor market. But while discussing things with my Nordic colleagues, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, they have more refugees than they could ever imagine before. And in principle, they all say, well, refugees have to start working. And when I ask a specific question, then the picture is very varied in these three countries. And while speaking with Danes, I was very much surprised. It appeared that their strongest conflict is in the fact that these refugees, migrants are not welcome on the labor market because they are willing to work with a lower salary than the local people would agree to get. And this is again a typical European problem. Internally, their conditions and rules are so high and strict because European people have lived, so to say, behind a rose garden. Brexit is the same issue, actually. People from other countries, European countries, come to the UK and are willing to work for lower salaries. These changes will take place. Brexit, it means also it's a long-term promise of conservatives to diminish their migrants' number. But from their economic point of view, yes, Marju Lauristin is right. When we speak about migrants on the labor market, most will be suffering people who earn low salaries because the salaries may decrease due to migrants. Because first of all, migrants come to their labor markets in the sectors where the salaries are low because their skills are low. Another aspect we are discussing in EU Parliament is their acknowledgement of diplomas. For example, a migrant with a doctor's license or certificate, the person will have difficulties because the European countries wouldn't acknowledge it. Thank you. And now we are coming to the conclusion of this first part. One of the most important aspects we could remind of our representatives in different European structures. What would that aspect be? It's very difficult to point out just one aspect because there are so many aspects. If we point out one aspect, then we are rating things. But I would like to say that we have discussed them all here today. One thing is that Europe has to be able, including Estonia, has to make a distinction between war refugees, economic refugees, and who need protection. Second, Europe has to be able to follow its own rules. The rules which say that war refugees have to be protected. On the other hand, external borders have to be protected also in Europe. I think the situation which we face now, 1.5 million refugees, migrants, they are in Europe already. And we have to face that fact. And we have to understand that we need a practical program, not just speeches and political rhetorics, but a practical program which will regard the process from the very beginning. Yes, people have to be registered, but then they have to be adjusted to the situation they are finding themselves in the EU, in different member states. Next, their ways and possibilities of working on the labor market, how they could use their skills without any conflict. These are the practical steps we have to think about, and not just think how to push the migrants away from our countries. Their pushing away energy has been very strong so far, even in the Council, and therefore some practical steps haven't been taken so far. Actually, plans are there. European Commission has made these plans, but the problem is in implementation. They are not implemented. We have to implement and execute the plans, existing plans. All the issues we have speaking about today, the Turkey issue, external borders, internal issues, their most important message is time is coming to its end. We have to start doing things. I think from the point of view of the EU, it's very important that their system of sending non-eligible migrants and refugees back, this system has to start to function properly. And it's not good that there is a permanent opposition. Some people say, no, these are not refugees, they are IT people. And the others say, oh, they are not IT specialists, they are refugees, or they are not proper refugees, they are just economic migrants, etc. I believe in Europe and in Estonia, the feeling of being able to do things, this is important. We are the hosts here. We have to deal with things. We have to be constructive, and we have to try to help constructively to solve things and not just push away the problems or ignore them. We have to be realistic. Actually, Estonians are good, common sense people. We thank our panelists for this very interesting discussion, and now we shall have the lunch break. At 12:40 we continue.
Tere tulemast meie järgmisesse sessiooni, siis tänane pärastlõuna, kuidas see välja näeb, on siis niimoodi, et umbes kella 1 või paar minutit pärast 1 me kuulame siis oma teist arutelupaneeli koos Indrek Tarand ja Oudekki Loone ja Maarja Mändmaaga, ja seal me räägime veel rohkem võib-olla sellest, et kuidas Eestis pagulasteemat on käsitletud, kes esindab inimesi Eestis selle teemal, ja Oudekki ise, kes on ka töötanud selle referendumi.
Talk about the potential referendum proposal which Oudekki has suggested. So if anyone you would have liked to have more time for discussions, there will be a possibility. But before we start the discussion, we have invited guest speakers, 3 NGOs who will connect with Skype.
Meie interneti vahenduses räägivad meile siis vabakonnast Bulgaaria vabaühendus ProInfo.
ProInfo from Bulgaria.
Debatt on toimunud Bulgaarias.
And they'll tell us about the debate in Bulgaria. Second NGO from Italy tell us about its own initiatives. And then thirdly, experience from Cyprus. These interviews will be in English, and they will be simultaneously interpreted into Estonian, and we have here simultaneous interpretations. Pick up your earphones if you need them. And I'm going to switch into English as well, and the partners will understand me. Each of the presentation will be about 10 minutes. If you like to ask questions, then if you would like to ask, you have to come up here to me and ask the question into the microphone. And I have an assistant here to help me.
Skype'i puhul see alati juhtub nii, nii et võime kasutada seda
In case of Skype, you know, there may be problems.
Ja nüüd on ka video, aga ma palun, Andrei, et sa lülitaksid sellega. Aha. So, hello, Betko. Are you ready to talk to us?
Good morning.
Well, good morning. It's not a morning for us. Hello, my name is Anna, and you cannot see a room full of people listening to you, but I can assure you that I can.
I can definitely see it because I've been watching the debate since the morning. It's being webcast live, and I think this is a very good thing for everybody. So thank you, and I'm really very happy to be talking to you. I want to tell you a couple of things about what has been done so far in the framework of the EU Impact project. In September, actually, in the middle of the heat of the crisis with the refugees, EU Impact came up with the initiative called Access, which is Active Citizens for Common European Solutions. And the whole idea was to remind the European Parliament and the other relevant decision makers on the European level that besides the radical groups on both sides, especially the right-wing anti-migrant groups, but also the usual defendants of the rights of the refugees, there is also a much wider audience which should be and must be concerned and consulted when we're talking about free movement, when we're talking about the regulations that reflect on everybody's daily life. And unfortunately, the result from that initiative has gone in two directions. All of the members of the network of EU Impact have sent letters asking for greater citizen consultations to their respective MEPs. That's several hundred members of European Parliament. We weren't expecting, and the point of the initiative was not to get immediate feedback and invitations for us as an organization or as a network to participate. We just wanted to remind them that we can't jump to rapid changes in fundamental rights of free movement just because there is an ongoing crisis without having a wider consultation with everybody in civil society. ECAS, our European partners, the European Citizen Action Service, has followed up on that initiative by specific consultations with the relevant committees in European Parliament. And they have received some quite positive results. So have we. Some of the Bulgarian members of European Parliament have reacted very positively and have asked for advice or for specific involvement of participants from the civil society in their discussions, in their initiatives. So I think to a certain extent we can probably argue that there has been some result. But also this debate has gone in the opposite direction, something which I see as quite dangerous, actually, what is going on right now. I think the migrant crisis has fueled more support for initiatives like the ones that are backed by the UK right now. If you go back to the situation 6 months ago, revising the social rights of European citizens was not on the agenda, and today it's more or less widely accepted by a majority, probably a majority of governments, and it may influence the long-term future of the European Union. That's another thing which is happening, I think, under the political pressure of the refugee crisis, and something which is not being consulted outside, or not widely enough consulted outside the group of the usual suspects. At the same time, I should point out that there is quite a long list of consultations which are open, and we are planning to participate in them actively by submitting our positions or being involved in the debates. And I would like to actually encourage everybody else who wants to have their voices heard to follow the same thing. In late December and early January, a lot of consultations on issues related to migration have been opened. One of them actually closes next week, on the 16th of February. There is a public consultation which has been open since December on a directive on combating terrorism, and it's open for submissions from public society, from civil society, from NGOs. There is a similar consultation by DG Home, which is about legislation tackling migrant smuggling. That one is open till April. There is a consultation about the regulation on the European Border and Coast Guard, which is open until March 2016. So generally, I think we should be all very active, and this is one of the reasons why having these discussions and these contacts across Europe, not just be active on a national level with the development European Parliament, but also organizing this kind of network approach to the European institutions. Maybe one thing that I should like to finish my presentation with is that there is a report which already mentions, a report in European Parliament which already mentions the need for greater involvement of NGOs. It's a report which specifically says that civil society involvement in the development of union actions on this issue should be strengthened in the process of revising the legislation and the policies concerning freedom of movement and dealing with the refugees. So this is a brief intro, and actually my call to everybody who is involved in these issues to follow up closely what's going on, what are the consultations available, ask for new ones, and be very proactive in voicing what we have to say, what we want, how we see the policies of the Union developing.
Thank you very much, Petko. Does anyone have any questions for him? On kellelgi küsimusi? Well, it appears that we are questionless, as Estonians often can be. And we thank you... I saw one. So, härra Rait, palun tulge siia. Siis teid nähakse.
Would you kindly come up to the
Wait, you need to get to the mic.
Microphone. Would you come to the microphone, please?
I want to question which countries are most active in this field right now. I mean, where NGOs, they meet refugees actively, and where they are against actively, and how to make that in Europe there will be some kind of balance and bigger role of NGOs in solving the problems of refugees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I don't have statistics, which is the country with the most active citizen involvement in these issues. But if you follow the trends in social media and how much this is being discussed in the media in general, Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, and Denmark become among the top countries that have been discussing these things. And in the different countries, it's usually linked to national political events. Of course, you can put the debate in the UK in that list of countries where there is a very heated discussion about the future of freedom of movement, not necessarily related to the migrant crisis, but definitely, of course, the debate is much stronger in the countries that are the highest recipients of refugees, or the transit countries as well. So you would find a lot of debate in Greece, in Macedonia, in Serbia, in Hungary, definitely in Austria. But the purpose of working in networks like this one, like the EU Impact Network, is that we try to bring the issue out of the national context and sum up citizen reaction on a European level, where it makes a bigger impact. So that's the whole point. If you want to join the network, it's an open network and everybody's welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Petko. We will share your initiative also on the Facebook event page, so everyone who wants to contribute can see this. And all in all, goodbye to you in Bulgaria and good luck with talking about democracy and refugees. All right?
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye. Nii, see oli siis ettekanne Bulgaariast.
This was presentation from Bulgaria, and now let's go to Italy. They will speak about their initiative. My web assistant is assisting me again.
Hello, Mariano, can you hear us?
Good morning.
It's not a morning for us anymore.
How are you?
Good. Hello, welcome from Italy. You are in front of a live audience.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody.
So, do you want to talk to us about the initiative that you are running in Italy?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have prepared my presentation, and if you are ready, I can talk about 3 points. First of all, an overview of the phenomenon in my country, the message of the civil society sent it to Europe, and last but not least, also the commitment of my organization. What do you think about?
That sounds excellent. You will have to stay in 10-minute limit, though. But we are very interested to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so just a brief presentation of my organization, because I want to present you Active Citizenship Network as one of the most widespread flexible European network, composed by more than 100 civic organizations. It was established in 2001, is coordinated by the Italian NGO Cittadinanza Attiva, founded in 1978, so more than 37 years old. That is an independent from any political affiliation, trade unions, private company, and public institutions. Our main objective are the promotion of civic activism and the participation in the political arena, and the protection of citizens' rights, which are both the strength and the uniqueness of my network that I am the director of Active Citizenship Network. Just to remember that we, at European level, we are officially member of the Health Policy Forum, the European platform dealing with health and patient rights, led by the European Commission, DG Health and Food Safety, and as well official member of Active Citizenship Structural Dialogue Group, led by the European Commission, DG Migration and Home Affairs, the European platform dealing with civic participation. This is relevant to underline our commitment in this group, because of course is very linked with the topic of this webinar. So an overview of the phenomenon in my country, the Italy, among the syndrome of encirclement and the fight to stereotypes. I just want to introduce a little bit this point. Italians probably suffer the syndrome of encirclement by immigrants. In fact, according to a recent survey, Italians believe that 30% of the national population is composed of immigrants. But thinking about the official statistic data, immigrants account for just over 9% of the population in the country. Probably these syndromes depends on the extraordinary growth that immigration has had recently, taking into account that over the past 15 years, the number of foreign citizens in Italy has more than quadrupled. I have produced also a presentation in which you can find this kind of data, as well as a lot of link, and the organizer of the webinar can widespread this document after the webinar for all the participants. Talking about to fight stereotypes, From one end, for sure, as all we know, it's not easy to understand the complexity of this phenomenon and, of course, the flow of hundreds of thousands of people who arrive every year in our country, even if also to go in another one, create several problems. From another hand, talking about immigration, there are many stereotypes to find. For instance, the rumor that all migrants come here, I just talk in Italy, is unfounded. Germany, Spain, United Kingdom have much more foreign people than in Italy. They take away our job. We listen a lot this kind of rumor, but from an economic point of view, this statement does not make sense, because it's true that the migrants take jobs at the same time they create the same number of jobs. In fact, they not only work, but also consume. Another stereotype is that they receive money every day to stay in hotel. The money spent for a daily basis by the Italian state for migrants in reception center are actually 35%, people less than 40%, sorry, 35 euros. Instead, the public opinion talk about 40 euros every day. But of these, only 2.5 euros are given to migrants for their personal needs. The rest is used to cover the cost structures. As well, for the same reason, it's not correct to say that they received the public housing, because among the criteria for the allocation of public housing, the nationality doesn't appear other kind of elements, such as the income, the number of family members, more than 5, age, any disability, and so on. Now, just some data. It is at national level, so in Italy, it estimated that between 2000 and 2013, more than 23,000 people trying to reach Europe by land or sea died. So in Italy, the Italian government in 2013 has initiated the Mare Nostrum program, as you know, replaced after 1 year by the community program Triton, some other kind of, with less expenditure of money. The cost was much lower.
Mariano, would you perhaps sorry to interrupt, as we have a little time left for presentation, and we are quite aware of the problems that happen with refugees all over Europe. Could you perhaps talk about whether you have tried to solve these issues, and what has been your solution, and how has it worked in Italy? Because this is information that we don't have.
I just want to say that civil organizations in general are aware that being these tragedies, this history, we can find not only poverty, disease, but also political, economic interest at international level. This is a very important point to act. Europe must build an atmosphere of peace, consistency, democracy, social and economic well-being, and to reduce, for example, too much liberal trade agreements, the privatization of common goods, etc. In Italy, for example, last month, civil organizations involved in the National Asylum Network have met the government in order to express concern over what is happening at European level. Civil organizations stress the need to respect the provision of national legislation on access to the asylum. At the same time, the association asked to be present at landing places at the Italian border to provide assistance and information to refugees about their rights, as well as to ensure the avoidance of conflict with the policy. Now, just to say what was and what is our commitment at the national level, that over the years we have promoted several initiatives. Of course, each one in partnership with many civic organizations dealing with the topic. For instance, this is very important because it's an example of the civic participation in the promoting this kind of policy, inclusion policy. For example, we have promoted a campaign to promote a civic control over the management of services and facilities in order to foster the transparent management of the reception of asylum-seeking system. For example, in Italy there are more than 40,000 people housed in this asylum center, but there isn't a public map of this extraordinary reception center. The acronym in Italy is CAS, and for this reason we have called this reason named the campaign CAS campaign. There are large, clear and accessible information, and above all, the compliance with the services delivery standards set by convention and contract is not respected at all. Another kind of example.
Mariana, just a moment. We are running out of time, so I'm asking you to very closely just sum up, and then we'll see if we have a few questions from the audience. So if you could just maybe finish with something that you think is important to share with us. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. This was another kind of example that we have carried out at the national level, because we have seen an agreement, and then I conclude, of course, my presentation. We have seen an agreement between my organization and a prison in Rome to promote inside the prison initiative for the protection of human and civil rights and for the dissemination of cultural alternatives to deviance and to prison, as well as we are very committed to realize, document, and advocacy for the needs of immigrant women. So this is some kind of example of commitment at national level of my organization. In the society is emerging, this is a positive news, a new protagonist, the citizens immigrant, among the precariousness of the rights and the need of a protection. In this instance of protection, fortunately, there is now adding one that is really a request for participation. Immigrants want to participate. Many immigrant citizens demonstrate the need to play an active role in the civil society, and we believe that's a good news. On this basis, we believe that every debate and political decision should first of all address the issue of immigration in view of the construction of the common good. And for example, our former Italian president of the Republic has defined immigration as an international common good which brings huge economic benefit and social in the advantaged countries. At the same time, it requires that thus some countries ensure better living conditions for immigrants and decent work. Of course, three are the main common challenges for all of us. Put aside any emergency approach. It is not emergency because it's a daily phenomenon. Be advised, the presence of migrants as an internal part of our society. This is the reality, this is the truth. We can talk about our society with these specific characteristics. The third point that the future of the European Union, it will depend on their ability, our common ability to promote a common policy on immigration and migrants. I thanks for your attention, of course.
Thank you very much, Mariano. Does anyone have any questions for the gentleman? It appears we do not. Thank you so much again for your words, and we will move on to another presentation. Bye-bye, Mariano.
Bye. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Nii, minu võluriabiline Andrei jätkab kolmanda Skype'i
Andrei trying to connect us with the third speaker from Cyprus. And Cyprus has also had quite tough experience and big migratory flows. And the President of Cyprus will tell us about the work Cyprus and NGOs have done to improve the situation and welfare of refugees.
ja kes nägi, siis Mariano aknast paistis päike, nii et võib-olla saime ka oma
Did you notice Mariano had sunshine in Italy? Well, it's probably the closest to the sunshine today.
Hello, Savas, are you with us? We can...
Hello?
Yes, the video is coming. Hello!
Hello.
Yes, hello, Savas. You are in front of a live studio audience in Tallinn. So if you could please share your experience working with refugees in Cyprus.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Through my presentation, I'll try to give a very short general oversight of what is happening in Cyprus in terms of the refugee crisis that the whole of Europe is experiencing at the moment. Before starting off, I have to point out that despite being extremely close to Syria, we haven't received a substantial number of refugees from Syria. The reason for that is that the Syrian refugees basically try to avoid Cyprus because us being an island and due to the terms of the Dublin regulation, if they come to Cyprus, they basically stuck here, they can't leave, they have to an asylum in Cyprus and they try to avoid that. The vast majority of them want to go to Western Europe. So basically in the past 2 years, we only received 2 ships, while in Lesbos, they receive like thousands of refugees every day. When these ships with refugees came to Cyprus, they were taken to a reception camp in Burnara, where they are getting registered, they can apply for the asylum in Cyprus. Those who apply for asylum, they are then moved into another refugee camp in Kofinu, where they are offered accommodation, all their needs are catered as long as the asylum procedure is taking place. Unaccompanied minors in Cyprus are put under... Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Unaccompanied minors in Cyprus are put under the supervision of the Cyprus government social services, which run different shelters for young kids, teenage girls, and teenage boys. At this point, I would like to also mention the civil society's involvement in this process. One of those shelters for unaccompanied minors is run by an NGO called Hope for Children, which offers the shelter and caters all the needs of the teenage boys who are unaccompanied minors, and also proceeds makes all the procedures for those who would like to apply for asylum in Cyprus or for those who are applying for a connection with their families in other countries of Europe. Other organizations like GISA and Future World Center are offering legal support and advice to refugees. But the greatest help that is being offered by the civil society of Cyprus to refugees is the donations of clothing, food, and hygiene products by various organizations. In the case of the 2 shipments of refugees who came to Cyprus, this was led by the Cyprus Red Cross. And finally, I would like to mention a newly established organization. Its name is Hope for Refugees, which is actually carrying out a support mission right now in Lesbos in Greece, helping out the situation there. This is a very basic and very short oversight of what is happening in Cyprus. Would you like to ask me something, or?
Yeah, good question. I'll just check with the audience. Does anyone have any questions? No. Well, I will have one short question, which is perhaps that what is the most important lesson for you, having gone through this process of receiving refugees? What have you learned that you would advise other people to do differently?
I have to say that as an organization, we're not working in the refugee. We're not specialized in the refugees. I think it's really important for people to remember to hear about these people because in Cyprus we have experienced the war in 1974, so we know how it feels to be leaving your home. So it's really important to realize that it can happen to you. I mean, the Syrian refugees were every day cut established lives. Most of them never thought that they would have to leave their home. So it's really important to remember to give out and help people.
Okay, well, thank you for your interesting words, and we will now leave you to Cyprus.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
thanks.
thank
Bye-bye.
You. Bye.
Selge, sellised siis olid
õppetunnid. These were the lessons from NGOs in Europe. And now it's a pleasure to invite here three interesting speakers. Marju Mändmaa from Friendly Estonia. And Marju Mändmaa, by her profession, has also been responsible for the VAO refugee center. My pleasure is to have here Oudekki Loone from the Estonian Parliament, and the third speaker is Indrek Tarand. We have already spoken about Europe this morning, so part of your story has been told already, but welcome anyway, Indrek Tarand from the European Parliament.
Seal ei ole seda kommet.
Well, let's keep the introductions brief. I was asked during the coffee break the following. The refugee crisis got to Estonia and Europe after the elections. This is a topic which has been discussed and debated generally. But many people actually think that they have not had a possibility to make their voice heard or to vote, so they haven't issued a mandate to be represented in these issues. And I'd like to know to what extent Estonian parties, policy makers should ask for the public opinion and listen to the public opinion. Well, Indrek. Thank you. I would like to point out that Estonian parties prior to the elections 2015 did not discuss this topic, but even me in November 2014 encouraged them to do so. The video I took, and there were many refugees in Brussels already. I don't know why the parties did not discuss it. Maybe it shows how enclosed the party policies in Estonia, that the parties only turn the view inside, and maybe they don't even understand the worldly issues. Okay. Yeah. No, just a moment, I have a question to Tarand, and then I'll give the floor to you. So, Indrek Tarand, you have been elected to be a member of the European Parliament. To what extent you, if, or whether you have listened to the public opinion, do you have any communications? Well, of course, I've done it. Half of my grey cells have gone because I've dealt with this issue so deeply. Last summer, for example, I responded weekly more than 100 emails. Some were informative and well formulated. And some were just saying that, okay, I'll kill you. I'll throw a stone at you. Okay, will this put an end to the war in Cyprus and the criminals will stop human smuggling? Well, the author of this letter thought for 2 days and then responded, yeah, you're right. Well, anyway, this communication work in Europe is similar to that in Estonia. The dilemma facing the executive power is as follows. After World War II, everybody was shocked of the outcome, what people are able to do. And under the circumstances, we were quite idealistic when we concluded post-war agreements. The human rights issues were lifted on a platform and have become a unique composition of states. Do we abide by our promises and obligations, or are there borders, other borderline cases which make us change the agreements? We can't live in a situation where we have signed to something but do not follow to the letter the agreements. So it seems to be a matter of religion. The facts don't seem to be important, but the faith seems to be dominating. There are those who believe that the Caucasian race will become extinct, and the others say that you have to help and save. But what's your position, Indrek, in the European Parliament? I have supported what the Commission has suggested and proposed. It's not an ideal case to have refugee quotas, but this is probably more just than to say that it's all up to the Germans to deal with it. If 70 years after the war we keep telling Germans that they are responsible for it, that they have to pay for everything, well, this is not relevant. And the member states' governments have actually crossed this plan out. Well, the EU national governments often do this because they all pursue and represent their very narrow political survival from elections to elections. And apart from Angela Merkel, we don't probably have any political leader in Europe who would have a broader outlook than just next elections. Okay? Now the floor goes to Oudekki. Did you say something about public involvement? I want you to say that in our party, immigration has been widely discussed and also before elections to the European Parliament. But to have a discussion or to launch a discussion in the society, parties have to do a lot of debating and discussing. But what's the main point in elections is not just down to the parties, it's up to the public also to retrospectively look back on the past 4 years, what's been most painful, what has hurt most. So the people who have some personal feelings or have felt it, these issues themselves, they probably have left for Finland. Well, anyway, in brief, it doesn't mean that policies do not have to have public approval. It's not carte blanche mandate which is given to the party at the elections. So the answer is it's not only inside the party the discussion is held, but also outside. Marju. I don't really think that the government of any country is worse than its people. Well, that's the reality. If we ask why the government didn't see the problem, then I have been dealing with the reception of asylum seekers since 2013. I can say that unlike the previous 10 years, the number of applications have increased. We didn't raise our voice that the situation is bad. Well, we thought we have money, we have space, we found a solution to the problems. So actually, the people who raised the problem were the people who lived in the village of Vao. We in our daily work were sure that we can cope with the situations, but we didn't communicate it to the local people, and as they were not aware what's going on or what will happen, all the problems cropped up. I don't know how many of you go hiking, but just think about it. How frequently you look to the path and how frequently you look around. You probably focus on the path you are taking. So prior to the elections, we had no idea that such a crisis will crop up. Well, of course, 4 years ago, having a broader outlook, we could have realized what's going on. Anyway, we can't talk about refugee crisis in Estonian. Well, we don't have it. We have 60 people in who are looking forward to processing their applications. But if we take Lebanon, we have received some 3.5 million refugees. Well, so anyway, we can discuss the issues with still quite calmly. As regards mandate, I don't really think that we have to organize new elections every time there is a bigger problem, because we elect our representatives to the parliament based on the party policy, the worldview, etc. But if burning issues are raised, then it's important to have people involved, and people should also contribute to initiating a debate. So if the politicians have overlooked it, so people could initiate a discussion.
Ja mida me siit selle kohta oskame öelda ja selle kohta õppida ja siis veel vaatame, mida me saame tulevikus teha selleks, et kodanike hääl kuuldud oleks. Aga kindlasti ma ei tahtnud ka öelda, et Eesti erakonnad oleks pidanud ennustama ette suurt põgenikekriis. Ma pigem mõtlesin, et kui me seda ette ei ennustanud ja nüüd see meile tuli, sellise ootamatu uue küsimusena.
And now, a new question.
Kuidas valijad sellega suhestuvad?
What, how their voters are related to all this, and if we look at their discussions about refugees, migrants within the last years, what kind of important aspects could you point out? Was anything missing in these discussions? I would start with the following. I noticed two aspects, both in Estonia and also in other countries of Europe. One of them being the following: their acceptance of a migrant, a refugee, is a sign of sovereignty of a country. Who decides? This is one of the questions which has been very strongly represented in their undercurrent of their debate. Indrek also pointed it out. Who makes the decision? We, the government, the European Parliament, the Commission. Actually, their cause of the debate in Estonia was not in the fact that how many refugees and do we want them or not. Many people resisted the fact that somebody is imposing the figures on us. And it's possible to guide, lead the debate in different directions. And in Estonia, it has also happened that instead of asking who is doing it, the debate has become a matter of face. On the one hand, the debates are carried out on the security ground only. On the other hand, all those suffering, come here, we'll help you. And in these two positions, to find a rational solution, it's almost impossible. And yes, of course, we can vote, or we could all ask a question, how to come from their faith and belief issues, step back and ask, well, all these places where we decide that yes, we interfere, then migration will start from there. In that case, we have to write it down somewhere in the regulations that we shall have some money in order to accept also migrants from these places. Already in case of Iraq, we should have had that kind of debate. Marju? Well, speaking about the quality of the debate, it seemed to me that in the middle of the last year, when the quota issue was raised, actually there were no debates, real debates going on. There were some hectic shares of information, and sometimes they were also biased. In case there is a debate going on, I presume that people participating in the debate, they will have their facts, argumentation, they know about these things, but everything was based on hot emotions. And yes, very often people were on their guard and they didn't want to accept the ideas of the other party, of their opponents. People were defensive. But if you take issues step by step and take the real facts, then there is no more obscure issues left. Estonia hasn't ratified Geneva Convention. Estonia has signed the Geneva Convention, stating that you have to help war refugees, and that's it. Maybe not everybody knows it. Maybe somebody thinks that it's just something on the paper. But we are a democratic country. We have taken responsibilities upon ourselves, and we have to fulfill them. This is the idea, as I think, which we have to discuss. As to extremism, I haven't faced an NGO in Estonia who would say, well, come everybody here. Friendly Estonia, our organization, sometimes people are accusing us that, well, you are to be blamed that people will come here. No. All those who will take the floor, they should be responsible and they should speak about things they know and not vice versa. I would call everybody to be rational. I have seen such people. In a way, it's very nice, but actually space is limited. But the idea is beautiful. But again, the Geneva Convention, yes, it says we have to help people. But the question is, the issue is, how many people are we able to help? This concerns Estonia and also the whole of Europe. The convention doesn't say that we have to accept everybody, not discriminating anybody. And the other thing you mentioned, how much money is needed in order to provide housing for the people, education, etc. This is one of the debates we should carry out. And here we would need Excel also to support our debates. Mr. Tarand, Estonian parties, they were not able to predict the migration crisis during our last elections. It means they are not monitoring the situation in the world. Actually, the process is older than 15 years on the verge of Europe. And there is also migration from Asia to Australia, from South America to Mexico and US. How to include their debate? Yes, of course, it's a pleasant debate in case everybody participating is speaking about facts, controlled facts, and are rational and provide a plan for action. Maybe we should, and we, I mean delegates elected by their people, we have to clear the timeline. Migration is not something invented in the 21st century and because of Syria only. Homo sapiens has migrated to all the continents in the world. But how to get water, drinking water, how to get food, how to get children, these are the basic issues for a human being. The Geneva Convention is very specific about war refugees, but another policy is necessary for people who pretend to be refugees. And, of course, monetary limits are also important. And it's not only important how much money we have, but also how much money the European Commission is planning to provide. You should read their articles written by the leader of your party. He has said that our Estonian economy is collapsing. It means we don't have any money for refugees at all. If we take the Netherlands, 1 square kilometer, there are some 400 people living per 1 square kilometer. Our figure is very low in comparison with that. But our ability, tolerance ability has been tested, actually. And it was tested also during their Soviet era when Estonians were sick and tired of their political situation. But at present, 20% of population, that kind of figure could be the figure we would be able to accept in Estonia. And we have to overcome our disappointments, former problems. And we have to consider also the fact that during the last 15 years, some 100,000 people have left Estonia, have emigrated from Estonia. I wouldn't like to point out how many refugees we should accept, but all these issues, how many people could live in Estonia. There is no reasonable answer. European Commission can't give you that kind of calculation either. And this is maybe a cultural decision, political decision people should take. We can say that, well, in our culture, in our state, it's reasonable that there density of population could be this or that in the country, and we can't take that decision just overnight. It needs to be discussed. Indrek may have one opinion, the others may have other opinions. And money issues. Yes, we can calculate things and say, okay, we have money enough to accept 200 refugees per year, and then it may appear that other countries are able to take more, and they could pay to us per refugee, and maybe some invoices could be issued for that kind of trading. But it means that we have discussed these things, we know what could be the limit, and we know what is the opinion of people. And of course, one possibility would be to delegate it to the European Parliament. They have been elected. Actually, I wouldn't delegate things to the European Commission because they haven't been elected by people. But we have to discuss it first. Should the refugee quota be decided by the Estonian Parliament, European Parliament, or UN? We have to discuss these things, but discuss it in the sovereignty terms and not in the terms what is somebody's religion. I'm not the person just speaking what could have been happening, but we may state that political parties did not discuss these things during their electoral campaign period. But things were explained too little at that time. During their elections to the European Parliament, I focused on these things. In your campaign, you didn't focus. But people decided that issues discussed by Indrek Tarand during his campaign were more important. He was elected to the European Parliament, I was not. Maybe we should not accuse the political parties so much. This is your opinion. You think this is their issue of their European Union. But then you also answered the sovereignty issue. No. In this respect, it is determined. If we have given part of our sovereignty to the European Union, it is people's decision. People have to decide whether this issue will be decided in the European Parliament or not. This is one of the possibilities. Should we send our people with a mandate? No, it's not your issue. We want to decide it ourselves. Or we send people to European Parliament with a mandate that this is your issue. I would like to answer the question asked by the moderator, who or should have been done. Yes, of course, the ruling parties could have made use of that issue, discuss things, not only the numbers and figures 2 weeks after the figure was announced, that no more than that figure, then things started to happen. But this is gone now. At that time, the government did not make use of the possibility of starting the discussion, and the initiative of Friendly Estonia got its idea from the fact that nobody was discussing things. We wanted to encourage people to discuss these things among people. And definitely parties could discuss things among themselves, but at the same time NGOs have a lot of power to initiate discussions. Last year, together with their Academy of Security Sciences, we started discussions, and questions asked by the people, they were very primitive actually. For example, somebody from the housing cooperative asked, well, in case a Syrian refugee starts to live in our building, what will happen? Nothing will happen. You don't have to keep an eye on the Syrian. No. Their common understanding what will happen. This is sometimes surrounded by danger in people's minds. People are afraid of cultural conflicts, etc. But we have to discuss things openly. Because the main thing is, these refugees, they would like to live in peace. I myself am involved actively in the NGO world, and last year, when we discussed the refugee issues, then one of the NGOs, Estonian Refugee Aid, these people were very active, writing articles in the newspapers, meeting people, clarifying things about refugees. That was wonderful. And I think these activists should be praised for their good work. But the things which are very strong in Western Europe, humanitarian issues, they were not very strong in Estonia. And extremists, we are not facing extremists stating to them that you are absolutely wrong. Martin Helme from EKRE party, they are not extremists actually. Kristiina Ojuland could be called an extremist because she is defending the white race. But in principle, I have been participating in different events, and I have also tried to explain my opinion. Political parties, they have to think about their ratings, but I have the pleasure of being an independent person, and therefore I can speak my mind. And I can be neutral. Now I would like to provoke. Oudekki mentioned elections to the European Parliament. I remember I had a discussion and debate with Olga Sitnik concerning refugees. And Olga said that we should accept, first of all, Ukrainians here because they're close to our culture. But I was against it. I said that Nigerians and Eritreans are more beneficial for us because what the Donbas miners do in case they see holes in Ida-Virumaa, they will start hoisting red flags. It's debatable. Since their moment we start to calculate which person could be more beneficial, we step in the sphere where Kristina Ojuland is. She claims we have to defend such good as white skin, but people are not goods. And we can't accept people on the grounds of their political beliefs, the color of their skin. Maybe we can consider their degree of disaster the refugee has been in. I would like to add about Excel table. Yes, we can't compare people and goods, and we can't base our argumentation on the fact how much money is paid to us for accepting degrees and how much money is dedicated for refugee support. While speaking about facts, in Vao refugee center, some 43% of the asylum seekers, they are working already while waiting for their permission. It means these people have taken their decision already, and they think it's more beneficial for them to work and not just live on benefits only. And 27% of those people leaving our refugee center, they have their job already, and they are being trained, etc. I want to say the interest of these people is not just to come here and relax on the benefits. Last year, I visited also Lebanon refugee camps. There we saw people with higher education, and they had left their homes because they had lost everything at the war, and it was below their dignity to go to streets and start begging. We didn't meet anybody who would claim that Europe would be their hope and desire. But in case you have been living in a camp in a plastic tent for 3 years, you start to lose some hope.
Well, I quite agree with you. But now let's switch to the audience. What do you think? What's your opinion of the public discussion on the refugee issues taking place in Estonia? Something negative, something significant? So what would you like to say? Good afternoon. Briefly, I'd like to say the following. Yeah, there are both parties put forward, both sides put forward their arguments, but they are always monologues. You just don't listen to the others. Yeah, listening to the others, picking out relevant thoughts from the others is important. Yeah, it's difficult to get a dialogue. Yeah, it's a monologue. And even in social media, there is monologue, people grouping, creating a dialogue, developing a dialogue. In a way requires that you suppress yourself. You don't shut the doors. You're like a teacher. Well, you don't hit your fellow. Thank you. Maybe I'd like to recall the title of our public discussions, The Voice of the Citizens in the European Refugee Crisis. I asked this question from the Bulgarian speaker, and said that there are, in the countries where there are more refugees, there's a bigger debate, and actually in countries like Estonia, where there are less refugees, there is not much of a debate going on. And I'd like to add, if Indrek says that Estonian politicians don't really understand what's going in the world, well, they maybe understand. Well, don't interfere, Indrek. I will finish. You anyway can have 3 times more time than us. Okay, I fully agree. I fully agree, but I'd like to add, when Estonia acceded to the European Union, the possibilities that migration issues will be raised was minor issues. Yeah, it was clear that there will be some kind of migration in open Europe. But you said, well, this is not an important issue. Well, it will never be a big deal. I agree, politicians probably didn't pay attention to the migration issues. Now, the second question is, who should listen to us? Well, members of the Estonian parliament and members of the European Parliament. I don't think there are any other who would be listening. And if we don't have a debate or discussion, not much hearing has taken place. Indrek just admitted that there's nothing else but to listen to the European Commission. So the government and the public and everybody listened to them, but the Commission has not been very successful. But actually the government didn't agree with the European Commission's the quota or smaller one. No. Originally it was against, but later agreed. Yeah, but actually the quote was smaller and then they agreed to a bigger quote. So the government rather agreed more than disagreed. So they didn't have any discussion with the Commission and no arguments whatsoever. Now, who represents me? Who represents civic society? Well, at the UN or in Europe, we should have a kind of NGO. I don't think in Estonia we have NGOs in Estonia who are represented either at the UN or in Europe. I'm sure they are in Germany, in Austria and elsewhere. So no one really represents the civic society here. Okay, Mal's organizations, the Open Estonia Foundation is excellent. It finances events like the one today, but we are not represented. on the decision-taking level. And as I can take the floor only once, I'd like to put forward proposals. What to do so that Estonian politicians could open their eyes. Would you be brief, please? Well, the first topic, it's a global problem. We won't be able to solve the migration crisis in Estonia, neither in Europe. It has to be solved globally at the level of UN and G40. And my proposal to the MEP is that the Estonian delegates should make a proposal to G20 or to the UN, to the high representatives of refugees at the UN. What should be done? Changes are necessary. As the status of the refugee, the status of the war refugee, who is migrant, who is a refugee? Well, Cameron has a point. You can't have similar support and aid to all of them. What kind of support will be for refugees? What kind of support for migrants? It has to be regulated internationally. It's not a European problem only. It's a problem of Australia, Asia, America. Okay, let's move forward. We understand your proposal. Move forward. And now my proposal for Estonia is, if we would like to be a democracy, we would like to involve more people in decision making, we should conduct surveys. What's the attitude vis-à-vis the receipt of refugees? If necessary, conduct a referendum. Many democratic countries have done this, for example, Switzerland. Thank you very much for your proposals. We will comment them later. Are there any other opinions? Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay that I ask this question in English. My name is Tobias Meyer, I'm from Germany. And we have a big social movement in Germany which is called Pegida, which represents pretty right-wing opinions. And there is Pegida Eesti existing in Estonia. My question is, where do you see far right-wing social movements like Pegida in Estonia's future when, regarding the current refugee crisis? Thank you.
Yeah, the question we don't want to answer, but have to, of course. On veel arvamusi?
Thank you. Any other opinions? Kert Valdaru, Estonian Academy of Security Sciences. If I may, I would like to make a comment. As a rule, everything good coming from Mr. is ours. If anything goes wrong, we say, no, it's no fault of ours. The European Union is to blame. This applies to quota. If we ask what went wrong in the debate, then the overall party position is that the Commission issued quotas and people realize it's as if the Soviet era is back. We here have done everything perfect. But Marju actually has mentioned that with our academy we conducted in each Estonian 15 counties discussions and there were representatives of the local governments. And all these local representatives focused on Estonia. Yeah, they mentioned a couple of times that the quotas were like just in the Soviet Union, but they stressed that the conflict between the local and national level is not really related to the refugee crisis. The crisis is some 10 years old and is in getting the obligations from the national government the state keeps saying, okay, we will help you. But then all of a sudden, the local governments have to cope themselves. And one of the examples was about the free school meals. At one point, the government said that it will be free, the state will provide free meals in schools. And then at one point, the government said, oh, well, we will just partially finance it. So this was the parallel was drawn. I would like to add, if we think of the disagreement with quotas and the criticism against the parties, is that while we are not listened to in different public discussions, it's quite often said that why doesn't the government listen to us? Well, if it doesn't listen to us, it's a bad government, etc., etc. This seems to be a trend. The disappointment in the policy, and this is well known in political science, in Western democracies, people get disappointed in policy. Okay, let's leave that. But what should we do is the question. We'd like to have a state, have a country where people like living. And now the question is, how can we do better? What can we learn as a society from the refugee debate? What should we do differently? Media, the society, we ourselves. In the recent Economist, there is a briefing, so you could read it and you'd see where Estonia would fit in. But my answer is as follows. Each and every one individually will have to solve a question. I remember very well as a child, we lived in the countryside, in the forest. And in the autumn, many big military plants, staff, workers were brought by bus to the countryside. They were very noisy, we were afraid of them, we were very creative, we didn't want to see them, we didn't want to know anything about it. Maybe they were nice people. It's probably the same situation now. We don't want to see Africans or Arabs or whatever. We don't understand what they talk about. Let's look at the other extreme. Let's imagine we are in a service where you are allowed to use weapons. I am a lieutenant. I have guns. We all have guns. And there are women and children sinking. What should I do? How to block my brain to tell them, shoot them? So if you have clarified for yourselves such issues, then it's easy for you to discuss with Marju and others to know how to find solutions in a satisfactory way in this refugee crisis. Ivar Raig actually has right. There is a level of tolerance where things may go out of control. If we take Lebanon or other countries, the load is so heavy that the entire country may collapse at one point. So if we look at the framework of Estonia belonging to the European Union, which is subject to everything going on in the world, including climate change. A climate refugee is a term which is even probably going to end up in the European legislation. Well, this is what I think about it. But if we come back to the daily level, how we could have these debates better in future. where at one point somebody mentioned monologues. There are two monologues going on separately. I do believe in talking. We have to face the audience even if the hall is filled with people from so-called other planet. Communication is necessary. This communication has to be sorted into clear problems, problem solving, to find out what are the problems prevailing in the audience. Definitely there will be some issues which remain unsolved, but anyway, I think each and every NGO can discuss and talk to the others. And if that's a conflict, then there will be a bigger debate. Well, we have been contacted asking about social aid or whatnot. So groups of people have discussed issues and then contacted us. Someone has been in the discussion group who has said, okay, let's contact the others, let's find an answer. I think this is an excellent way to be encouraged. Yeah, I faced audiences filled with motorcycle gang members have had reasonable, argumented communication, discussion. We should maintain discussion. As regards the question about the Pegida, Estonian Pegida, and the future of extreme rightist movement in Estonia, then I do hope that Estonia is a small society, such networking society that extreme rightist, leftist movements will not have a future. Should such a movement expand, Jesus, something is very wrong in the society. So exchange of information, exchange of ideas, communication, knowledge, this should help. And going back to the very beginning, okay, can Estonia remain closed to the rest of the world? Meeting with different audiences, I mean people who say we should vote for leaving the European Union and build a wall around. I would ask them usually, do you tell me what are the 3 Estonian-made things you have with you? Could you make mobile phone calls? Would you have internet? Made in Estonia. Who knows? Who knows? Okay. Could we, even if we wanted to be completely separated, could Estonia be completely separated? Well, that's not really possible. We will be under some kind of influence impact anyway. Okay, but have you ever discussed such a question? If the European Union will sign a treaty with Erdogan and Turkey will close a transit route to Europe, then there will be a movement where Russia. Has this been officially discussed? Has this been discussed? No, it hasn't been officially discussed. Yeah, we have quietly between ourselves discussed it, we have thought about it, but officials coming together, discussing it. I've never been present when such a strategy has been discussed. I have in the Parliament, in the EU affairs issue, this possibility has been under discussions, different different scenarios have been under discussions. So we do discuss it. I'm sorry, you haven't finished. Yes, yeah. Yeah, so in case of such a scenario, we would be a problematic country like Italy or Greece, and we'd all be yelling, come and help us, take them away. Well, I'm just confused, surprised. I would like to answer from three levels. First, from the government level. Here to ask who represents citizens. Well, the government has the mandate in UN, in the European Commission, whatever. So, first, you will have to approach the government. The biggest problem, in my opinion, is what Marju mentioned, communications. If we had started with these questions, these are the plans, we will discuss the cooperation, because we could be the next on the line. Well, we have a next-door neighbor several times larger than Estonia. If anything happens there, even if it's a minor crisis for us, we could have 500,000 people crossing our eastern border. What will we do? This is something the government has to communicate. And say, well, look, these are the institutions we have. They are ready. They are doing this and that. And first and foremost, we should have sent a person to Vao, to this village, to tell, to communicate it to the local people. I'm sure if this has been done, most of the current problem would have been developed. I'm sure it can be done now, and do hope it will be done. And I'm really glad that citizens have been to Vao. But anyway, it doesn't relieve from responsibility the people who are decision makers. It's been said already that somebody somewhere takes the government, takes the decision, and then the others will carry them out. But the ones who are responsible for taking decisions should also provide explanations. The second level would be parties. Parties are actually the tool to manage people who take decisions. So again, talk to your people, talk to your representatives. We can mobilize politically active people. I think we should do more. We should cooperate with NGOs more. I'm self-critical. We should have joint events together with such NGOs. Sitting down all together, small groups, actually is more efficient than you can imagine. We don't have a big TV campaign or slogan campaign, poster campaign. Let's just come together and discuss. And the third level, we ourselves, I as a citizen, as one of you. So what could we do? The point is how we speak, and it doesn't apply only to refugee discussions. Well, here I have to keep my ears open where and how Indrek will attack me. Okay, we are equal and it's quite funny. But if I am continuously in a defensive position, it's uncomfortable. Well, it might be funny for me, because I may enjoy it, but what kind of example it would be? Bad example for the young. Well, don't be defensive. You make me, okay, you hit me, I hit you, and we enjoy. Okay, calm down, let me allow me to finish. All I wanted to say is that if we discuss certain issues, then the mode of discussions. And who do we have? Okay, we can attack parties because they are in power. Because they have budgetary allocations to support them. Okay, let's keep ourselves on track. Okay, can I trust a person who speaks Russian so good? They are politically not that reliable, maybe. Okay, again, if our attitude is like this, then we would push that person into a defensive position. And if we allow this in our discussions, this is a bad example. So this is something which we as citizens, each and everyone, should think. Am I just attacking anybody because he belongs to a group? Maybe I can avoid it. And if I attack, I'll attack somebody who is stronger than myself. I'm happy, Indrek, that you consider me stronger. Okay, Ivar, wait a moment. I would like to move forward. The time is over anyway soon. Okay. Oudekki. And a few others have said that the referendum has to be held. And I think a referendum is a tricky issue. And I've heard that citizens whose voice is not heard, who are very much against refugees and would like to be represented and who are interested in the referendum should also be considered. So why have you made this proposal?
Their issue is this question hasn't been discussed well enough before elections, and I'm very sorry, I regret it. But when we have to make an important decision, and this will be an important decision, people's mandate should be there. And what question could it be? Yes, no, simple question concerning some politics. Whether we can accept or not accept the proposal made by the European Commission, that would be the subject of that kind of question. But this presupposes prior, very deep discussion. We can't carry out the referendum tomorrow, because tomorrow people wouldn't have information enough. Maybe the referendum could be carried out together with the next municipal elections. Then it would save some money. And in case we make that kind of political decision, then the political parties are bound to go and discuss things. And in case everybody agrees that that kind of a referendum could be carried out, then the Republican Election Committee, beside the technical assistance, information about the referendum decision will be passed. But we haven't had that kind of discussions and argumentation. We have to be informed before taking the decision. And their question designed has to be the question which presupposes discussions and well-informed discussions. For example, the wording could be, do we agree with the proposal made? Yes, it could be the proposal made by the European Commission, like Greece had there referendum, but this is just one of the possibilities. I don't know whether it could be proper to have particular figures written down in the referendum question.
Hakkan siin veel väga kaua seda monoloogi pidama, siis see läheb välja sellest teemast. Aga ma loodan, et ma vastasin küsimusele.
I hope you received their answer. This is one of their possibilities, how citizens can voice their opinion. But Geneva Convention articles and refugee issue in general could be put at referendum. Consultative referendum can be also carried out on external issues. But I make my best in order not to be forced to take to referendum the Geneva Convention issue. But Estonia hasn't found any suitable refugees so far to accept. Not quite the principle that we have to help those in distress. This is not questionable. And those who oppose their plans made by the government, they are not opposing refugees in principle. They are opposing their technical side of it, things how it is carried out. In public, at least, nobody has voiced that kind of opinion. And of course, even constitution can be questioned at the referendum, but there is no need for that at the moment. And now our last question, maybe. How the voice of Estonian citizens be voiced even stronger? What are the ways citizens could use in order to improve things and citizens could feel that their voice is heard? Ivar would like to take the floor. He feels himself a citizen. Ivar has made his proposals already. Yes, please. Take the floor. You have expressed your opinions already. I would like to say that in this hall, untrue things shouldn't prevail. Non-governmental organizations are not represented by governments. Citizens are represented by the parliament. NGOs have been formed and organized in order to have a debate with the government. NGOs are not represented by the government. That would be wrong. Yes, that's correct. And as to their referendum on the proposal of the European Commission, that would be a nonsense. Indrek Tarand pointed it out already. International treaties cannot be questioned by referendum. You can carry out referendums concerning only their expansion of competencies. For example, whether the Estonian parliament has the competence to give money for the fund for Greece. so that some of their national budgets will be allocated into the fund. Consultative referendums can always be carried out, but I would like to see a government which would say, yes, people have voted during the referendum, but we are not going to listen to that opinion. But now their competence in the field of refugee policy, does the European Commission have that competence or not? This is an issue, and will it inviolate the sovereignty of national states or not? They are debating this issue in case of Greece. And in Greece, people from Syriza and other parties, they are of the opinion that Turks are not going to guard our boards. Yeah, some stories from their parliament. But now, in conclusion, if you think that some important ideas should be still expressed here, if we make this issue more operative, if as a citizen, I would like to have my voice heard. Whom should I contact? Whom should I phone to? I don't know. So that person could pass my opinion somewhere. I don't know that kind of person. I don't know their phone number. I know several NGOs, and I know the Minister of Internal Affairs have had meetings with social partners. But some other citizens and other NGOs would like to express their opinion. I can't suggest any phone number. We have to look at their tiny map of Estonia, find people in the Estonian parliament, and try to contact somebody. Actually, the aim should be that in Europe there should be a common strategy. Now, every member state defends its own interests. To my mind, it will accumulate the crisis, nothing else. It would be urgent that citizens would give a notice that we have to come to a common agreement. It seems that in the first half of our day, the main message was that Estonia should be more active to suggest assistance to the European Union. And in this second half of the day, we could underline that everybody should learn how to communicate more effectively. Maybe we can meet also with you at their Opinion Festival, which will take place in August. And I would like to thank our panelists, everybody in the hall. We hope that through our event you have now a clearer picture what is going on with our voices, our opinions in the parliament. And I understand Indrek accepts letters. You can write letters to Indrek. Yes, this is true. I answer every letter. Thank you.